Hi. Hi there. Hello. Hi. Hello. Hi. Okay. Hey, today I would like to show you a couple of things that come up in your book after lesson 10. That'd be lab 1 and investigation 1. Investigation 1, you are more or less on your own to try some things out, but I want to give you some little tips here and starting place for that. Let's start with lab 1, generating random numbers. And this is apparently a graphing calculator lab, though you don't necessarily need a graphing calculator, but I am going to show you where the buttons are on your calculator in order to help you do that. There are a couple of different ways that you could generate random numbers on your calculator. You can follow the directions in the book with a TI-84. One place that you can find a way to generate random numbers is using the math button over here on the side. And if you use your arrows and you go over to probability, the PRB there at the top, number 1 does generate random numbers for you, that first choice there. Rand will pop up on your home screen, and when you hit enter, it will give you lots of digits. Okay, so it'll give you a number between 0 and 1 to like 9 digits. If all you need is a random number between 0 and 9, then you can use each individual digit of this many digit number, decimal place number, as random numbers. Uh, the book asks for integers, counting numbers. So you go back to that math thing, over to probability, and the book asks you to try number 5, which says random integer and then has a parentheses. So if you choose that, on mine, with the updated software, it lays it out as far as what is the lower number of your range, and in the book it's 1. You can hit enter. The upper range is, they ask for 12 in the book, and then n just means how many random numbers do you want. So you can just ask it for 1, but the book ends up having 3 produced. So I'm going to put n equals 3. And then the highlighter will go on paste. I'm going to hit enter, and I think that'll pop up on the regular screen the way it would type in, kind of the old-fashioned way, the way it looks like in the book. Hit enter again, and 3 random numbers are generated between or inclusive of 1 to 12. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. I like that little menu item thing that drops down for you to pick whatever you want. If you want to do 1 to 100, it would do that, and you could even have it list 50 random numbers if you so choose. Another way that's kind of fun, that gives you a few more options than just getting a random number. If you want to flip coins, or you want to pull a card, or roll dice that's different than even just a 6-sided dice, you're going to go to your button here that says apps. And if you go to that, you can scroll down until you find the application that is called ProbSim. Mine's like number 0. Probability Simulator. You see that? And you gotta hit enter, and it's going to give you some choices there. So there's a lot of things to play around with, and you should probably just push some buttons and see what happens on this. But you can toss a coin. So if you need a heads or tails type of problem set up, you can do that. It'll roll dice for you, and it'll roll 1 dice or 2 dice, and it can roll a 6-sided dice. It can roll a 8, 10, 12-sided dice. It can roll a number of different kinds of sizes of dice. It'll pick marbles. There's some questions about colored squares in a paper sack in the investigation. So picking marbles, it will you'll get what, up to 5 different types of marbles, and you can set it to do just about whatever you want to. So let's see what happens when I pick a marble. Oh, it was that kind of marble. I'm just going to keep picking. I'm going to pick like 50 times. It's going to keep picking marbles, and then give you a distribution of how many things happened there. Okay, so you can use that again to toss coins, roll dice, pick marbles, spin a spinner, draw cards, and number 6 is random numbers. So if you choose random numbers and you push draw, it'll give you some random numbers, but the settings here are for digits that go from 1 to 40. So it has a button there that says set. If you push that, you'll get how many numbers it will generate for you. Secondly, the range, if you would like that to go to 1 to 12, you just have to change the numbers. And then if you want repeats, and I usually do, that's random, should say yes. And then hit the OK button and hit yes. And then hit that button there, and you get yourself some random numbers. 1, 7, 8, 12, 9, 10, and 7. The nice thing about this is you can keep drawing random numbers, and it will continue to list them for you, and you can see all the random numbers that it's generated thus far, etc., etc., etc. You can also use a list of the digits of pi and just start anywhere, and it is about the randomest number as far as the digits go that are possible. Okay, that's nice. That's technology, but sometimes you just want to. Sometimes it doesn't feel like the calculator is random enough because there's a computer program that is using a seed value to generate the random number, so it's actually called pseudo-random. If you really want to test out randomness, you should get a coin or you should get dice of any kind of shape. I kind of like this one because it's a dice inside of a dice, so you only have to roll one dice, but you're going to get 2 numbers in it, 3 and a 1 there on that. And they're different colors, so they're different dices. They can count as different rolls. I don't have a coin here today, but I do have this handy dandy button that says, I helped build the new Treasure Island Museum. So I could treat this side as heads and this side as tails and just flip the thing and stab myself in the hand and say, oh, it's heads. So you have methods there, but there is a difference between the probability of an event occurring and the frequency of something occurring. And one of those is, let me roll the dice 100 times and see how many heads and tails that I get. Roll the dice and get heads. Flip a coin and get heads and tails. Or roll a dice and see how often I get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. That's one thing. The other thing is to say, well, what are the chances that a 1 would come up if I rolled a dice, a 6-sided dice? 1 in 6. Now, what happen if I did that 100 times? It might be a little bit different than 16% or 16.67%. So in the book, they've got a scale that's kind of like this. Probabilities work from 0 to 1. If it's probabilities, like I'm just looking at this dice and I'm trying to figure out what are the chances. A probability of 0 means that it cannot occur, like rolling a 7 on a 6-sided dice, on a standard 6-sided dice. And 1, or like 100%, if that thing will happen every time, like getting a number less than 7 when I roll 1 dice, that is a probability of 100%. Then you can have anywhere in between 0 and 1. On the top, I have what would be the actual occurrence if I roll the dice, and you're keeping track of how many 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s. You would have a number here of 0 if the thing never occurred, a frequency distribution of like 0 out of 100 of a certain number, or always has occurred. But the biggest thing with this is just to be able to keep track of the data. You got to keep track of the data with little tally marks or some sort of measuring device. And your experimental probability, what happened when I actually did it, is going to be the number of times that the event occurred divided by the total number of trials. So if your goal is roll a 3 and you roll the dice 100 times and 3 comes up 17 times, then 17 divided by 100 is your experimental probability. So anyway, there's a few ways that you can go ahead and do that. You can use this and use the probability simulator to do some of that for you electronically. It could keep track of all that and those numbers for you. Or you can do it manually which sometimes I really appreciate, but it depends on what you're looking for. Do you need a 12-sided dice, or do you need a 20-sided dice, or would you like a 4-sided dice? I've even seen somebody that makes a 3-sided dice, which is kind of like a cylinder, and it's supposed to fall on heads, tails, and on the edge equally likely. So try that out. Use your calculator for some of it. Use some manipulatives for the other stuff, and just make sure that you keep track of your data. That should be it. On to lesson 11.